From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to Beat the Champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everyone. Beat the Champs tour all over Western New York continues this month. We are in Jamestown, New York at the Jamestown Bowling Company for another month full of great bowling. We've been in Salamanca, Fredonia, back up to Williamsville, here to Jamestown. But that's what's fun about this show. We get a chance to see a lot of different parts of Western New York and a lot of different bowlers. And particularly this month, Sue, we've got a lot of Jamestown guys on this show for the next couple of weeks.
Well, that's the cool thing about coming all the way over here is we know there's great bowling on this side, but we don't always see them in Western New York. So 2 new faces today, a lot of inexperience this month.
Yeah, so, a lot of three bowlers making their Beat the Champ debuts. We've also got Chuck Jagosinski, who's one of our most successful bowlers. And we start off this week with our returning champ, Dan Melidona. He'll be facing 3 potential challengers, Jerry Lewandowski, Joe Rubrecht, and Andy Blasdell.
And even though he's our returning champion, he doesn't have a whole lot of wins behind him, too. So, you know, it's anybody's deal. And Joe Rubrecht, we found out last month, just got back to bowling and came right back and made the show. So we know he's kind of good, sharp on his game right now. So, honestly, being the champ is actually still going to be a great big challenge here.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's really unpredictable, which I know keeps you on your toes, Janelle.
Yeah, and you know, I always say I love writing lots of strikes on the board, but it is fun to see how these guys are gonna, you know, come back from different difficult shots.
Yeah, we are in Jamestown. It's the home of the National Comedy Center. So in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna make you laugh, we're gonna make you cry, we're gonna make you cheer, we're gonna have some fun as part of Beat the Champ. So let's get rolling. So here we go. First match of our first week here at the Jamestown Bowling Company features our returning champ, Dan Melidona. He comes in after a win 2 weeks ago over Ray Richards at Transit Lanes. That gets him the pleasure of making the beautiful drive down here to Jamestown and to continue to try to keep that champion's crown. Jerry Lewandowski is the opponent. You saw Jerry briefly. We'll get him in a moment. But here we go from the Jamestown Bowling Company. 2019 Beat the Champ in Chautauqua County. And a good way for Dan to start it off with a strike. Third appearance on the show for Dan Melidona, and now we get to see the second appearance of Jerry Lewandowski from West Seneca, New York, 54 years old. We've only had him one time on the show before. That was 2 years ago up at the Kearns Avenue Bowling Company in 2017.
First lefty we've seen in a little while.
We didn't have any lefties at Transit, right?
Right. And this
left,
house,
right, left. We didn't have any we didn't have any lefties up at Transit Lane. So, and it's always an interesting, you know, to see right off the bat to get the lefty, and how does that going to shake out? Don't forget, like us on the Facebook page and on social media and Twitter as well to keep track of all the events and upcoming goings on here with Beat the Champ.
Well, you know, right now you're thinking they're probably on an equal playing field because no one's really bowled on these lanes yet. So this is the first game for both of them. So it probably shouldn't be a huge factor for them. That one right there, he got in a little bit inside his target. And there's a lot of oil on the inside that we're dealing with a house pattern here. So tends to leave like a weak corner pin, which is what he did. So misses target a little bit inside.
As Sue said, house pattern here, so that should lend itself to some good scoring. Synthetic lanes here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. Always like to lay out all the parameters for you when we get started. And Jerry Lewandowski laying out all the pins with his first strike in frame number 2. So Dan Melidona, we've seen Dan periodically here on our show. 2 wins and 1 loss so far. I mentioned this is his 3rd appearance after he advances from the win at Transit Lanes. Dan's a really good bowler. We just haven't got him on the show a whole lot. He's won some pretty significant events throughout his career in Western New York.
Absolutely, and I think that, not to bring it up before we even see them in the show, but it kind of lends to how difficult it is to continually make the show on a regular basis. We have such strong talent, Dan included, and you know, just when you see, you know, Chuck or Mike or
other than Chuck and Mike, it's you know, those are our regulars.
Rocket Rob, and you know, now Joe Rubrecht making the show back to back is
3 weeks
a challenge.
3 months in a row for Joe. We'll talk about that. You saw Janelle Saban manning the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. She'll keep you up to date on the scores of our matches throughout this match and throughout all of our shows here from Jamestown.
So both these guys are kind of playing the lanes the same way. They're looking at their prospective second arrow on each side. And, you know, they should have a little bit room to their right and a little bit of room to their left. They just can't pull it too much because then the ball doesn't get that extra hit.
Yeah, and then you saw Dan's last 2 strikes, just perfect down the lane, nice little curve at the end, right into that pocket to pull those strikes out. Let's see if Jerry can continue to do the same thing, and there you go, pretty much the exact same thing, just from the opposite side.
Exactly.
So when you're a bowler of that style, and we would see both of these guys have very nice natural motions, what's the variable? You just briefly mentioned it. What do they want to try to avoid, or what do they need to try to avoid to knock themselves out of that?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I'm going to call it, you know, cheating. So that what they want is to hit their each second arrow on each of their sides. And you know you have a little bit of a right, you know you have a little bit to the left, but you don't want to use that. He got that one in quite a bit.
Much to the right.
Yeah. And yeah, he knows it. Oftentimes when you pull the ball, it's because your feet got a little fast, and it's one of the things to watch out for. If you're missing your target to the left, it's probably because you need to slow your feet down somewhat, which is what happened here.
All right, so before you go too much further, take me through how quick feet then translate into the ball not being where you want it to be.
Well, your feet get to the line too quickly, and the ball isn't there yet, so you end up pulling it across your body.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
So a little deep breath there from Dan as he waits for the ball return and eyes things up here.
He's got a nice little 34-pin lead halfway through, but we've seen everything
Oh,
here.
yeah.
You just can't get too comfortable. He's got to keep striking.
5 strikes in 6 frames for Dan as he gets ready to roll in frame 7 over on lane 17. 17 and 18, what we'll be using for the show.
Right over the second arrow.
Perfect.
Great shot.
Nice smooth motion from Dan. You can just see a guy who's comfortable,
Right.
who bowls a lot, who doesn't have to think, and his body knows how he's supposed to throw the right way.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have a plan, take a deep breath, and execute. Good shot.
That's 2 really nice in a row for Jerry Lewandowski. So putting a little heat on here at the end of the match. I told you Jerry has been on the show once before, Kearns Avenue Bowling Center in 2017, where he lost to Tyler Molina, who, as part of a nice win streak for Tyler Molina back a couple of years ago.
Haven't seen a lot of Tyler since he got married and
No,
had babies.
there you go. See, you know, he's got a few other distractions in his life.
Not where he needed that.
That was a big one. Jerry kind of needed that triple there to really kind of make up some ground.
Good spare. So Jerry's going to need a little help here from Dan if he's going to get anywhere, because Dan's going about, just pacing about 230, and the best Jerry can do is 224 at the strikeout. So all Dan has to do is fill frames at this point.
Yep, be safe, be smart as he gets ready to roll in the 8th frame. Dan's had the fortune of his 2 wins here on Beat the Champ.
Oh, that was dangerous. He got that one in quite a bit.
He was almost looking at us at a pretty nasty split there until it looked like the 6-pin fell down late. I was going to say his 2 wins have both advanced him to either the next week or the next bowling center in his 2 wins. So, you know, sometimes there's a strategy to being the 9th qualifier in a given bowling center for our show, because that means all you got to do is win 1 match and you get to come back as the champion. But the mixed challenge in that, of which Dan has done a good job in mastering, is being good and winning at Transit doesn't necessarily translate to being good and winning at Jamestown.
Absolutely, and that's so true. We see that all the time. It's always the first challenge for the champion is to compete against the people who actually lined up really great to that house.
Yeah, speaking of which, if Dan is able to win this match, his next two potential opponents, both guys who spend a lot of time here in Jamestown, and Joe Rubrecht and Andy Blasdell. So that will be an interesting challenge if Dan's able to pull off this victory.
A little bit to the right there. So you asked me earlier in the match about how they approach the lanes, and I mentioned the word cheating, and that's because you do have a little bit of right and you do have a little bit of left, but you do not want to go out of your way to use it. I mean, it's okay that it's there, and when it becomes a problem is when you say, okay, I've got tons of oil to my left, I can pull it. No, you can't. So it's good that it's there, but you still have to make good shots. And if in Dan's case, that one leaked a little bit right, but it was okay because he didn't throw it right. It just leaked a little bit right out. Well, I'll mention that more as I see it happen as we go along.
Yep. There's your updated Castellone scoreboard. We're going to see a little more of Jerry Lewandowski in a couple of weeks because our fourth show from here at the Jamestown Bowling Company will be a Jamestown Bowling Company challenge. So he'll be teamed up with our next bowler, Joe Rubrecht, in the doubles challenge from here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. So we're going to get a little more of Jerry whether he wins or loses this match.
And I have to tell you, all the bowlers have been pretty excited about these doubles. The classically
you like bowling
doubles,
don't you? Bowlers like bowling doubles.
I think we all do, yeah, because it's just not as much pressure on you. You get to bowl with your friend, your buddy, whatever. It's fun.
All right, good strong finish here by Jerry Lewandowski. That's a triple right there, 3 in a row in frames 9 and 10. Boy, that spare in the 8th could have really changed this match, because had he made a strike there, we'd be looking at 6 in a row right now, and that might have been the difference in what looks like it's going to be a win for Dan.
Right. So it's a count situation for Dan. We've seen anything happen here, so he needs to get 8 on his first ball.
So Jerry Lewandowski with a fine effort, a good solid late comeback that opened early on, hurt him a bit, but then he kind of found his groove, and he winds up with the 223, but again, might not be enough. Good count here for Dan, gets him a win.
Just good count. And he's a winner.
9's good count, wobbling 10 won't go down, but it'll be enough.
It'll be enough to win his first match here, which, good job by him. He's
good job.
Coming in from
That's right.
From the last
wins
house.
a transit, makes the nice drive down here to Jamestown, and wins his first match. So Dan Melidona going to get to stay in Jamestown a little bit longer. Next match, Dan versus Joe Rubrecht. We'll talk to Jerry and get you ready for that match. When Sue and I return, we are off and rolling at the Jamestown Bowling Company. More Beat the Champ right after this. So this winds up being a lot closer match at 226 to 223 for Dan Melidona, which means, Jerry, you're kicking yourself for the open early and the missed spare in the 8th frame.
Well, I think I was a little nervous at the beginning. I got a little slow in the 4th frame, and that's usually what happens. You miss a little bit, you go through the nose, you leave a split. But I settled down a little at the end. It's too bad that 7-pin didn't carry in the 8th, or it would have been a little closer. But it was fun, and thanks for having us down here at Jamestown. It was great hospitality, awesome bowling. If you can get down here next time, come on down.
All right, we're not done with you either, because you're going to be a part of our doubles show on the 4th show, right?
Yes, we'll be back. I'll be bowling with next competitor, Joe Rubrecht, and we'll see what we can do there.
All right, which means Jerry gets to hang around in beautiful Jamestown a little while and be entertained by Jim, right?
Exactly, and that was great bowling. You were a high qualifier, and you thrown the ball really well, and we enjoyed having you. So and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
Here's a little something for your efforts.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
so
you very much.
Jerry's doubles partner is our next opponent, Melidona versus Rubrecht, next on Beat the Champ. So it's the third straight match for Dan Melidona. It is the third straight month for our challenger, Joe Rubrecht. We'll explain that in a moment because Dan's going to get us started after the 226 to 223 win for Dan over Jerry Lewandowski. That wound up being a lot closer than we thought it might be towards the end there, didn't it?
It sure did, yeah. But it goes to show you how anything can happen, right? But he did know that he shut
He
him
had it
out
won,
too,
yeah,
so,
yeah. I mean, we like we said, he went into that 10th frame just needing those 8 pins, and he got it, and that was the win. And
Wow.
that's not the way you want to get things
So
started.
he moved in already. He moved his feet in, he moved his target in, he went right through the oil, and I don't know if he went what he saw prior to this that made him make that move, but that was definitely too deep.
Yeah. All right, well, see, as soon as Jim Mee, the owner here at the Jamestown Bowling Company, sits down, you get guys leaving 5 pins. Does that have anything to do with you at all?
Well, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I don't make anybody nervous.
Well, let's see what Dan can do. Well, he does his best that he can with 3 of the 5, so that's going to be an open in the first for Dan. That is certainly not the way you want to get it started, but it's always fun to be down here, Jim, and you do such a great job here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. It's a great place, and it's a fun trip for us, so it's always something we look forward to, particularly when we're here in May and not in January.
Yeah, that's why we don't have the qualifier then, because there's a good chance that the people from a little ways away would have a hard time getting here.
Yeah, and let's be honest, this is such a wonderful part of Western New York this time of the year that it's just fun for us to come down here and drive around the lake and see what Jamestown and this part of the Chautauqua Lake is all about. So, not that we don't like it here in its heyday of the winter months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we enjoy having you guys come down every year, and the way it's looking, I hope I'm going to stay with April because that's worked out pretty good the last 2 years. So
Good.
Hopefully we can keep the entries flowing in.
Right. So you saw Joe Rubrecht get started with a strike. This is the 3rd straight month we've had Joe because he won the last match at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia 2 months ago, and that advanced him to Transit, where he wound up losing in his first match to Rob Piccoli at Transit Lanes, but then he comes back and qualifies well second here at what's more of his home center in Jamestown. Mm-hmm. So again, Joe's becoming a pretty good regular. Tell everybody what we need to know about Joe because you know him pretty well.
Yeah, Joe, well, he's recently moved here in the last few years from the Buffalo area. He got a good job at Cummins, so he just kind of picked up roots and moved down here. And he doesn't really bowl leagues here, but he bowls, he subs once in a while, and he bowls a few tournaments here, but he's not really a every week.
It's a transplant.
Yeah, but he's a good restaurant customer, so.
We can speak to that.
We sure can, absolutely. And that's an interesting dynamic for Joe in that he's kind of a Buffalo guy and he's bowled a lot of his life in Buffalo, and then he moves down here. Oh boy. But I'll interrupt myself because you just saw there was a heart skipping a beat there for Dan for a second, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's one of the leaves we really hate to see is hitting the pocket and leaving something virtually unmakeable.
Boy, after opening with a 5-pin and leaving 2 of them to have gone 7-10 on the second frame would not have set a good tone. So at least Dan saves himself from that.
Well, and your opponent has a double too, so he finds himself, a bit in the hole right from the beginning. Looks to me like a little bit of carry down. I mean, that's why I was kind of surprised that he moved everything in because I thought that his ball was actually starting to come up just a hair light, and his ball reaction changed a bit from the beginning of the match.
Yeah, a little. I'm not sure if it's carried on. I think I'm pretty sure he's using urethane. That's what it looks like to me.
Everybody in their urethane now.
I mean, it's definitely got a urethane
That's what the
motion.
cool kids are doing. Is
Oh,
just
I
throwing urethane.
gotcha.
I throw too much ball to throw regular balls. I need urethane.
While we're on that, and while we've clearly touched a nerve for Sue, explain a little bit to people that aren't quite as familiar with what urethane does or doesn't do as to why it's having an effect on what Dan's doing or not doing.
Well, I definitely want to hear Jim's input on this because he's known equipment much better than I have, but I just want to say, in your absence and when Jack was here, I did ask him that question on the urethane, and his answer was...
He gave you a better answer than I would have.
Maybe than you would have, but I don't know, maybe not what Jim would have, but I'm interested in what Jim has to say to that response, to respond to what Jack said, but he said that because of the high rev rates now, you've got the you've got the two-handers and these high rev rates that they actually are using urethane to tame it down. Is that true?
Yes, and they can create so much power because of the two-hander and actually on some of these conditions that are tough, they make them look easy just because of the shape that the urethane gives them. And if you watch the Pro Tour, I just shake my head when I watch a show.
Right. I mean, it's even some of the people that are not two-handers, the rev rate isn't, but it's all getting to be that same kind of bowler, isn't it? I mean, that old stroker guy is sort of getting left behind because he can't keep up in the scoring pace. Is that true?
Well, exactly. I mean, they just don't have the margin. I mean, the two-handers they can throw at, let's face it. I mean, 20 miles an hour. I couldn't throw a 6-pound ball like that. But they just have the advantage anymore, and unless they come up with some special lane pattern that can kind of, not shut them out, but,
Right. I have to think that at some point that's going to happen. It's just always been that. I think that the industry has always been that way, where all these companies are working to negate this and control this, and then something else will come out. I mean, you have to think that at some point that'll have to be neutralized, or nobody will be able to keep up. This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
Kind of neck of the woods at least 3 times every year.
Right, and that does help
either
it.
Bradford or Salamanca, and then Fredonia, and then here. So it's good. It gives us some nice exposure into the great bowlers that you have down here in the Jamestown area. And boy, Dan keeps struggling here and just keeps sort of hanging his head trying to figure out what's wrong.
Well, his last shot on 17, he was right around third arrow, and that was definitely the right spot to be. And when he misses quite a bit right, all the way out to like 5, and it's not going to recover from where his feet are on the approach. So, not quite sure why he's, if he's a little quick or what's happening.
All right, so what's the challenge here? Trying to get all 4 of these pins. Made a nice run at it.
I think I think these two bowlers are playing the lanes not the right way. They should be farther right and much straighter.
We've had 5 opens in this match, which is, we might have 5 opens in a month on this show.
You're right, and Joe's just getting deeper and deeper, and he's going to have to be, what they're forcing themselves to do is to be deadly, deadly accurate. You can't, there's no margin for error with how they're playing it. And, unless you do this for a living, it's kind of hard to have no margin for error.
Exactly. I mean, I know the shot pretty well here, and you can start out playing like 10, 11. You don't need to start at 15 or 20,
right?
Because then you're kind of destroying the pattern.
Right. Well, that's what happened with Joe also at Transit Lanes. Everybody was straighter up to the right, and he came in and moved way deep and right. You can take the nicest house shot in the world and actually mess it up.
Big strike for Joe, 2 in a row there. He needed that one badly in the 9th frame, and kind of had those synchronized pins falling at the same time there. So
he's just using the dry boards. He's just standing in this left and trying to get it to the right spot on the right.
All right, so he's going to try to put a big push on here in the 10th frame and put the heat back on Dan.
Well, he can strike out and shut him out at this point.
Well, there you go. Even better than that.
I mean, he'll need a double here, and reasonably good count. Double 6 will shut Dan out.
So Joe Rubrecht with 3 opens in this match with a chance to win. That doesn't happen very often, does it?
I said 5-bagger, and he's going to need one.
Yeah. Jim's shaking his head like, no, that does not happen very often. There's a big one for Joe Rubrecht.
That one was really good.
Yeah, you can just see a little more pep in the step there from Joe as he's found himself here late in this match.
Well, I think he's working hard. I think he's working hard to throw good shots here. They're just not a given.
No, not the way he's playing them.
Right.
He's got to hit the dry boards at exactly the right spot.
Exactly.
Win or lose, we're going to see Joe again. He's going to team up with Jerry Lewandowski, who we just saw in our first match in the doubles competition, which is coming up in 3 weeks here as part of our 4th show here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. Got some good guys lined up for that one?
Definitely.
Big shot here. Oh, that was in.
You had the crowd kind of cheering for one of those pins to slide over, and it just didn't do it. So
yeah, that was inside his target. His eyes.
You saw it right away, didn't you?
Yeah. So we're going to keep it interesting here because Dan's going to have to double. A spare isn't going to do it.
So again, Joe, even after the struggles of both guys, Dan's going to go to the 10th frame with a chance to win.
Right. And we've seen a lot of things happen here, and I've said a million times how I marvel at the fact that bowlers that don't do this for a living come up and make these great shots to win. But when you've got 160 in the 9th, you are clearly not all that lined up. So it will be it's quite the challenge here to have to double.
All right, so the 184 is on the board for Joe, so it's a double to win for Dan, correct?
Double and 5.
Double and 5. There's one.
Great first shot. This is what makes this show fun.
Yes, it does. It's what makes this show great. Dan will tell you he bowled not very well in this match, but you've always, as long as you kind of hang in there and give yourself at least a chance to get to the end with a chance to win, that's what Dan has done.
Neither one of them had great ball reaction, so it was who was going to grind it out better.
Yep. All right, he needs a strike here, does Dan Melidona.
Pulled it.
Got that in and slow.
Yeah, it sort of died right at the end there, didn't it? So
worked hard to throw a 3-bagger. It was not easy to throw a 3-bagger on how they were playing it.
So a chance to win does not come up in Dan Melidona's favor, and it's going to wind up with a unlikely win for Joe Rubrecht. And I'm sure Joe would say that to us himself. With 3 open frames, he still comes up with a 184 to 180 win. And he's moving on. He'll take on Andy Blasdell in our final match of this week's show. We'll talk to Dan and get you ready for that match when we return to Jamestown. More Beat the Champ right after this. Well, Dan, I feel for you. That was a tough match, and not only was it a tough match, now you get to think about it on your drive all the way back to Williamsville. It started off with the open, and you kind of were struggling, and then you had a chance to win. Take us through what happened in this one.
Yeah, I mean, my ball reaction didn't really look that good during practice, and then I thought I made the right move, did not, and it seemed to be
balls at one point.
Yeah,
that seemed to help.
I had to change balls, and I at least had some sort of look, and then it came down to execution, and you win some, you lose some, right?
That's right. Jim, you know that pretty well, don't you?
I definitely got a little something for you here. I know you started throwing urethane, correct?
Oh, no, it was reactive.
Oh.
It was reactive.
It looked like urethane motion, so I wasn't quite sure. But after you switched balls, I thought you had it, but you threw a couple wide there, and just, hey, that happens.
Yeah.
That was good bowling, though.
Thank you very much.
I got a little something for you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you see you again down here.
All right, you win some, you lose some. I couldn't have said it any better. Dan Melidona knows how that feels. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Our final match of the day? Stick around. Coming up next. Thank you, Dan. Always. So it's a couple of Jamestown guys for our final match of week number 1 here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. Joe Rubrecht, who lives down here, Andy Blasdell, who is from here in Jamestown. So these are guys that know each other, know this bowling center, probably have bowled against each other before. So that should make for an interesting match. Not that we haven't had interesting matches already. A 3-pin win in the first match, a second match where neither guy seemed to want to win. Right. And so let's see if Joe has sort of figured out what went wrong in that match that he was still able to get a victory in.
Well, Joe has switched balls, and he has switched his angle of entry to the pocket.
There you go.
Which, you know, like Jim mentioned, that he thought that they were playing the lanes not to the best of the scoring ability. So they were making it more of a challenge than it needed to be.
Right. Okay. So again, I always love when you to ask you to explain things that you say like that, and what I think what you mean is they just weren't reading the lanes right, or they were trying to do more than what they should have been doing.
Well, I guess in a one-game match, you're going to make a decision, and then you'll have to live with that decision. So I think in Joe's case, he chose a bowling ball. The match was close enough where you couldn't just make a wholesale change balls, change lines, and fish it out. So he made as good a shots as he could to get through that match, and then had an opportunity now to change all of that. But in the heart of a one-game match, you normally just, unless you're really down, you don't throw caution to the wind. You just try to grind it out.
All right, so strike in the first frame for Andy Blasdell. Almost got himself a strike in frame number 2, and he'll have to play for the 10-pin spare. He is a big thrower with a big backswing.
Yeah, he's one of those power guys. And
that's about almost a little under 17 miles per hour heading down the lane on that first ball. Even the spare ball was moving pretty good.
Yeah, he's got some heat there.
Yeah, matter of fact, that spare ball, if the scoreboard is right, was 21.5 miles an hour.
Good job by Joe here, though, recognizing the change in the lanes and squaring up. That's what he did. We call it squaring up when you stop opening up the lane. Like his swing was open, so his shoulders were open facing the gutter. Now he's taken a different ball. He's playing where the heavier concentration of oil is, but more direct, straight up.
Yeah, you can see those shoulders never get much off of parallel, perpendicular to the lanes, but kind of parallel to the line. So
right, he's just great move on his part. He is playing these lanes exactly the way he should be now.
Just another example of what you talk an awful lot about is this is as much a mental game as it is a physical game, and the people and the bowlers that are really good at the mental part of it sometimes may not be as talented physically as some of their opponents, but usually win more because of that.
Oh, absolutely. It's more of a mental game than you think. It's a game of repetition and a mental game.
I guess the best thing to equate it to for a lot of our viewers who may be regular golfers is the guy who hits it the farthest doesn't always win. Now, that's changed a little bit in the world of golf now, where the guys who hit it farthest do tend to be able to put themselves in position to win more, but it's not always about that.
But they still have to have a good putting game and stuff like that.
Right. So again, that's an easy way to sort of explain it, is that, Joe can throw the ball hard. He's not going to throw it as hard as Andy, but he doesn't have to. And if he makes the right mental decisions, then he'll win this match and a lot of other matches, despite the fact that you won't have the miles per hour that jump out of you off the scoreboard.
Well, those can work for you or against you, because you'll leave some power hits too. That, like 8 pins and 9 pins and stuff like that, are sometimes a result of too much rev rate. Andy
Blasdell's 31 years old. He's from here in Jamestown, works at Tops Friendly Markets. He has been bowling about 23 years, so very early on, less than 10 years old is when he got started. Cumulative average of 217. He's got his dad, Jeff, and his grandfather, Alan, here cheering him on here at the Jamestown Bowling Company, and this is where he bowls regularly in the Thursday night Scratch Doubles League, and that's going to be an open in the third frame for Andy Blasdell with 9 pins. A outstanding high school bowler was Andy Blasdell. high score champion in 04, number 1 overall in the state in 04, number 1 overall in the section in 05. So his bowling career got started early with a lot of success. This is just his second appearance on our show. The only other time he has been able to be on the show before was here in Jamestown 2 years ago. Supposed to be on last year, got sick the morning of our taping and couldn't make the show. So this should be the 3rd consecutive year we've seen him here in Jamestown. Unfortunately, for that reason, it is only the 2nd time in the last 3 years.
Definitely comfortable in this bowling center.
And that one flies down the lane at 20 miles an hour for a 4th frame spare.
Reminds me a tiny bit of Chuck in that way he's approaching the lane as quickly as wasting no time. He's like up and at him, and ball comes off the rack, he's back up and at him.
Well, Chuck is who we're going to see in our next match. He'll face the winner of this match. And something interesting as we looked at the 9-10 bowlers coming into this month here in Jamestown, you know, you had Dan Melidona, who had a couple of wins, and obviously you had Chuck Jagosinski, who is 2nd on our show with his 31 wins. But beyond that, only 3 other wins combined by all the rest of the bowlers on this show.
Yeah,
which was unusual because we had a lot of debuts. We have 3 debut bowlers, and we have guys like Andy Blasdell, who's only been on it once before. They tend to be Jamestown guys that aren't usually regulars on our show. So again, you can look at that and say, boy, if whoever's going to win this match faces Chuck Jagosinski, Chuck might have the chance to really rattle off a bunch of wins in a row, but you never know, and that doesn't always happen.
Right.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
You know, no one has been able to put together any real run of strikes. And once again, everybody is sort of staring down stuff that they just don't want to see.
He made the right move. He moved in. He actually made a good shot that easily could have been just a 4-pin. It was just a little bit high. That right there is not a good break.
So this is a 4-10 split here?
Yeah. It could easily have just been a 4-pin. That shot wasn't bad enough to leave a split, but it happens. Pin collision.
So that's back-to-back opens for Joe Rubrecht. But then again, that didn't hurt him in his last match. He had 3 opens, and he still won over Dan Melidona. We will see if that continues again here. And you can see, I think there's a little frustration with Joe right now. A little bit of shake of the head, a little bit of sort of glance up at that scoreboard like, what the heck is going on?
Here's the good thing. It's a dead even match. They might as well be in frame 1 right now because they are dead even, and that is if Andy strikes. So the question is 17 tighter than 18? No.
That's a good bounce back for Joe Rubrecht. Big strike in the 7th frame.
Real good. So that puts himself in a little bit, well, if he strikes here, they're going to still be even.
Right,
so if he doesn't strike here, Joe's in the driver's seat.
So Andy has only had 1 strike in this match so far. And there's number 2, and he needed that one badly in the 7th frame.
Yeah, not that way. That's not, that was way inside his target.
Still shows up as a strike.
I know, it's always nice, but it doesn't mean you're lined up either, so.
There's the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Janelle Sabin keeping us up to date. Boy, that pin went ringing right over the 10 there, and I think Andy thought he was going to get that one. And once again, neither guy has been able to put together a lot of strikes. Joe struck in frames 1 and 2 and hasn't put together 2 in a row since then. He'll have that chance coming up.
Right. Well, it's a small move off that 410. He doesn't have to do a whole lot.
And once again, there's just missed opportunities by both of these guys.
So he started qualifying at Tonawanda. We'll be at Tonawanda Bowling Center next month. And it's just got underway. Next qualifier will be Friday, the 31st, 6:30 and 8:30. that whole weekend, the first and second, also lots of squads going on there. 4 and 6 on Saturday, all day on Sunday. Top 24 on that Sunday, the 2nd, and the roll-off also Sunday, the 2nd of June.
So that's all coming up.
Big shot there. He absolutely needed that one to take control of this match.
So that's 2 in a row for Joe. So all that stuff at Tonawanda coming up pretty quickly here. So get yourself through your Memorial Day weekend. Behave. Enjoy the official start of summer here in Western New York. And then for those that are going to try to make our show that have not packed the bowling ball away yet, we'll see you at the Tonawanda Bowling Center, Tonawanda Lanes.
And their show is going to be an adult child. Their 4th show will be adult child. So you may want to contact the bowling center. It's going to be a 1-day qualifier for that. I believe it's going to be on the 1st. And it's nice for parents and their kids to get out and get a chance to bowl.
9th frame, Joe Rubrecht. And he gets his first triple of the match. Big. This is a big stretch in this match right now.
Okay, so Andy needs them all.
Okay, that's pretty simply put.
To even have a chance.
Well, there's one. He gets the first strike in the 9th frame.
I think I think that I can count people out just based on performance, but we've learned our lesson here. You just can't. Anything can happen.
As long as Joe still has to come back up and bowl, and what we have seen from the lanes tending to bite at the bowlers a little bit here today, nothing is sure. There's 2 now for Andy Blasdell. He'll need 2 more here to finish out the 10th.
He'll need 2 more. Here, count matters, because if he gets them all, he gets his full pin count here. Joe will need 9 spare. 9 miss will not give him enough pins. If he opens, it won't be good enough.
That's assuming we get another strike, and we do from Andy Blasdell.
Oh, he's making him come up, and he's making him show up in the 10th frame.
1 more here to really put that heat back on Joe. Winner of this match takes on Chuck Jagosinski on next week's show.
All right.
Well, good way to finish for Andy Blasdell. He's struggled in this match, but he finishes strong with 4 in a row to post a 190.
Great finish. So strikes a winner here. Anything less than that has to be a spare.
All right, well, there you go. So now you know, and Joe knows what needs to happen, and the Castellone scoreboard knows, and Janelle knows. Everyone knows. Joe Rubrecht working 3 strikes in a row. That's a winner for Joe Rubrecht, who again struggles a bit in this match, but when he needed it the most, comes up with 4 strikes in a row, and he is going to be our winner. 2 in a row for Joe, and he will advance on to next week's show. We'll come back and talk to Joe and talk to Andy and get you ready for next week's show. Jamestown Bowling Company is where we are. This is Beat the Champ. Six consecutive strikes to end it gets Joe Rubrecht the win in this match. Andy, you ended strong as well too, but the beginning is what put you a little bit too far behind.
Yeah, I've never seen the lanes go so long as they have been out there, but you'll have that some days. Ball wasn't reacting.
Well, yell at the guy here to your left then. Maybe he had something to do with it.
No, it might be all the lights maybe, I don't know. But they're going long, that's for sure.
All right, well, we've pretty much almost had you 3 years in a row here. We got to get you out of Jamestown and get you up to some of the other ones.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll make sure of it for sure.
All right, Andy Blasdell put on a nice show tonight. Jim, make him feel a little better here.
I got a little something for you there. You put the pressure on Joe to at least mark in a 10th, but he came through. But it was a good finish for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. It was a good finish, Sue, wasn't it?
Yes, you came up here and said, what a grind, and you really had to grind it out out there, and that's the definition of grinding it out, right?
Absolutely. They're tough. They're definitely different than qualifying.
Well, you changed your whole approach from the first game on. You switched balls, you moved everything in, and I've watched you. You're working hard. You're thinking every single shot.
Adversity. You got to be adversity in this game. You got to be able to play everywhere and make a change quick. Only on one-game matches.
Well, thanks for giving me stuff to talk about because you're doing a good job of that. So good luck next week.
All right, we're going to have plenty to talk about because Joe is going to continue to move on. He'll take on Chuck Jagodzinski in our first match. We'll give you a nice preview of next week's show from here in Jamestown when we return back at the Jamestown Bowling Company right after this. You know, I'm not quite sure how to describe what we just saw for the first three matches because you've got our bowling center owner, Jim Mee, who's a great bowler himself, saying, boy, these guys should be scoring better. And then the bowlers are going, we can't figure this thing out. We're struggling. What exactly do we take from these first three matches?
Well, I think that when you're qualifying something, you come back and you expect it to be the same way. And I think it was a little different from that because they want the lanes to hold up all day. So they had to adjust on the fly. And they're not used to making the show, so maybe it takes a little bit longer. And, you know, we're not used to the experience that we've had before. But it doesn't matter what the score is. It went down to the final frame every single match, which means, you know, it's still exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. And Joe Rubrecht was able to do that in 2 of the 3 matches, so he'll be our lead bowler on next week's show, and he'll face a pretty good challenge in Chuck Jagodzinski. I haven't seen you keep that Castellone scoreboard updated with such speed ever like this before.
Yeah, and like Sue said, you know, these guys are trying to figure out these adjustments, and Chuck has been one of our most successful bowlers on the show, so we'll have to see if he's one of the guys that can make that adjustment and come up on top.
All right, well, there you go. You can't give you a better reason to make sure you join us for next week's show, Beat the Champ in Jamestown, New York. We will see you in 1 week.